Hello, my friends. Good morning. Whatever time of day it might be for you, catching this episode 11 of Let's Talk Soul to Soul. I'm Annalisa, joining you from Banff, Alberta on what feels like Christmas morning. I'll just pan over. Yeah, the snow keeps falling here in the Rocky Mountains. And you know, this excitement of fresh snow is how I feel about Let's Talk Soul to Soul. And I am stoked. Super excited today to welcome my very special guest, soul sister, Dr. Ricki Heller, who will be joining us. So I invite you to get cozy. Wherever you are, grab a hot or cold drink. This is going to be a good one. If you've been contemplating change, taking action on a dream like writing a book, starting a blog, or anything else, this is the place for you to be. And as you join, please feel free to add a comment where you're joining us from. Please feel free to use that comment section if you have questions or would like to share anything during our conversation with Ricki. You are more than welcome. Fantastic. We're here for episode 11, which is pretty amazing. Considering in October I had never used social media in any way, you know, but just a testament. Do it. Go for it. And Ricki is one of those people who's going to spark that inspiration. Welcome, Ricki.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Oh, Ricki, I know it's not breakfast television. It's it's Let's Talk Soul to Soul.
Yes. I already had breakfast, so no worries.
Exactly. And you're joining us from Ontario, outside of Toronto,
Just
right?
north of Toronto, yeah, in a little place called Maple.
Yes. Ricki, I panned over to the site this morning here in the Rockies, and before you joined, I likened what I see outside to how I feel. The fresh snowfall, the excitement, almost like Christmas morning, is how I feel with these beautiful Let's Talk Soul to Soul episodes, these connections. And so I'm just going to pan you over, my dear friend.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's stunning. Stunning. What a difference from pavement and driveways outside my window. I won't pan over.
No. It doesn't matter. You know what, Ricki? What we're generating here, this energy, this excitement, this optimism, this hope of these possibilities, you know, it's what I think is needed so much at this time.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that you're here, Ricki, because creating sacred spaces for souls to shine is my mission.
Yes.
And you're one of those people, Ricki, that you help people you spark creativity, you create a space where people feel at ease and able to shine in their authenticity, share their voice, and create something from that.
That is definitely my goal. You summed it up perfectly. Yeah, that's what I hope to do with people, right? Because I think people have these ideas, these stories, these messages that they don't realize that they have to share and that people want to hear.
Yeah. So, Ricki, before we jump in, and oh, I'm so excited, just to give a little bit of background, because Ricki, you are what I call a change ninja, a change aficionado, aficionada in Italian, we put the A for feminine. But I'm so honored you're here with me and sharing your mission, your message, your journey in any way that you feel moved today. You're a writer, you're an author of 4 books, maybe more.
4 published books, yeah.
4 published, right? Candida Free Cooking, Sweet Freedom, which is recommended by Ellen DeGeneres, right? Fantastic. An editor, a professional recipe developer, a lover of all things canine.
Yes.
Chocolate.
Absolutely. Can't go near that. I'm just going to quickly, the book is actually called Living Candida Free. I think Candida Free Cooking might be somebody else's book. I don't know.
Living Candida Free. I think I might have just pulled that one out of the sky. Living Candida Free. There we go. And Ricki will include at the end of this, in the little write-up, I'll include all the links. So people will have exactly how to find you, to link to your publications, how to work with you and all of that. So you are, when I look at what you've done, what you're writing about in any way, whether it's blogging, whether it's published works, it reflects so much of your passions and your life experiences, which is so amazing and such a testament to living true and living free and being able to make lemons into lemonade, taking difficult situations and creating them into something really beautiful. And so, Ricki, there were so many beautiful gems and nuggets of wisdom that as I've gotten to know you, have resonated with me. One of them, when I heard you speak at the MYM conference in the fall, your very heartfelt conversation about change and embracing change moved me, because I was going through from a difficult period of transition where change was more quote unquote forced as opposed to chosen. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Oh, I do.
But this quote, every situation provides a chance to learn, even if the lesson is not clear a few years later or decades. You talk about that there are lessons to be learned and that it may take years or it may take decades.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, you were going through change that you felt was forced upon you, because it's not been until very recently that I have sort of embraced and really worked at voluntary change. Like I've decided I want this change, I'm going to pursue it. That was very recent in my life. And I would say up until maybe less than 10 years, right? And I think if you think about people and people who've gone through traumatic situations or challenging situations, most of the time you don't choose those, right?
Exactly.
But what I think has changed for me in terms of my perception is that I understand, like looking back, and as you were saying, in retrospect, we can see things obviously we can't see in the moment. When I look back, and I'm not young, so I have a lot of years to look back on. So much of what at the moment felt not only devastating, but like world ending. Like literally, I thought my life was over at times. I thought nothing was ever going to be good again. And looking back, you realize those are actually the moments that teach you what you're made of, right? That you can rise again from that and reinvent yourself and try something new. I remember years ago, like in high school, I had a dear friend, and her dad died when she was quite young, and her mother was a single mother struggling to, raise these 2 girls. She had 2 daughters, and my friend was sort of like her mother. She was this go-getter and very strong and doing all this stuff. Well, she was the first of our group to get engaged and get married. She was really young. I think she was like 19 or something. And she
Mm.
was going to quit. She had been planning to become an accountant. She was going to quit her job. Her husband was the kind of guy that the rest of us were a little bit wary. He seemed so overbearing and so controlling. And I remember talking to her about it. And she said, I said, you know, don't you feel like you're going to lose your ability to be who you want to be? And she said, you know I can do this. I know I'm really strong.
Yeah.
But for once, I want someone to take care of me. And
Yes.
that's always stuck with me because in those moments where you feel like you just can't do it, I remember thinking, I just want somebody else to take care of this. I don't want to have to do this.
Yeah.
This is too hard. I can't do this. But the fact is, we're all of us who are still here, we're still here.
Yeah.
So that means we got through 100% of the challenging events, circumstances, life situations in our lives. We did it. We survived. We're here. And when you look at it that way, you realize you have reserves you don't even know that you have.
Absolutely, Ricki. Absolutely. That is so powerful. And I feel that you are providing that outlet for people to reconnect with that internal source of infinite power and strength and resilience that they may not even realize.
I hope so, right? I mean, sometimes you see the spark and it's great. I think a lot of people, when they begin, we didn't even say this. I'm a book coach. I help people write their
Yeah.
books, right?
Yeah.
So, and we work through the process together. So there are many different ways, and we can talk about the different things. But one of the things I do is, as someone's writing, I work with them. We have meetings every couple of weeks, and we go over the material and talk about where's the book going, what are the challenges. And as I've moved from, I've worked on some business books in the past and some books around a person's particular industry or whatever, but I've started working more and more on personal stories, memoir. And
Mm.
it's amazing to see as you sort of pull out the little threads from the life story and how they fit together and how, life circumstances have been woven into this present. People have these revelations about themselves and their past and things they didn't realize. Like I said, people are so much stronger than they realize because most of the memoirs, let's face it, are going to be around tough circumstances. People who feel like they want to share their story, it's because they've gotten through something hard and they want to help other people who might be going through something similar. So, I mean, I'm not going to write about I actually did write about the great day I had with my dog. So those are some of the things I write about. But
Yeah.
most people, if they're thinking about a memoir, it's usually triggered by something that was difficult that happened in their life. And then when people are reliving this by writing it and
Yeah.
writing it in a way that they can share it with other people, they're sometimes even amazed at themselves, right? And that for
Yeah.
me is the gem in this, where people, they just gain a greater understanding of who they are and what they're capable of
Yeah.
that they may not have even known before, really.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. I love what you're saying here. They gain a greater understanding of who they are and what they're capable of. And sometimes we need that person to create that safe space where we feel we can let down our guard.
Yeah,
And
for
that's
sure.
what you do.
And that's definitely a part of it. Yeah, because I mean, these are personal stories. It's very personal information that people are entrusting me with when we're
Yeah.
working on a memoir, for instance. Not so much if you're talking about your business strategies, but even that, one of the early books I wrote, I helped someone write, was about her business. It was about
Mhm.
what she teaches through her business, but you would still be surprised at how much of it hit personally and how much she had to dig it, to really be able to enunciate what she believed, right? Because it's your
Yeah.
belief system. It's part of who you are. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So do you see that when you look at the breadcrumbs that led you here
Mm.
to this place of opening possibilities for self-expression, for personal, for revelations, ahas, for dreams into reality. How did you get here?
Well, that's a little bit of a story.
You've got a story for everything. Do you have some highlight breadcrumbs for
Sure.
us?
So, I mean, I think you heard a lot of this story at the MYM conference, but I started writing when I was really, really young. I've always loved writing. I wrote a novel when I was 9, and it was actually crazy. My teacher, I showed it to my teacher because that was my safe person, right? And
Yeah.
she said, "Oh, why don't you read this to the class? Every week we can have you read for an hour." And I was like, "Okay." I just
Wow.
never in a million years of my adult life would I would I have agreed to that. But so, I was into writing. I really loved it, and I thought I was going to do that for my life. And I was influenced by my parents who, my dad was an immigrant. He built his business from scratch. They were worried I would never earn a living as a writer because as far as they knew, writers couldn't survive, unless it was sort of like acting. You had to be one of the 1%. And so I went and did something very practical. I became an English professor.
Mhm.
So I taught English, but I taught mostly how to write essays for class.
Yeah.
And then I got sick. I got really sick. I had candida overgrowth, hence the book, Living Candida Free. So I had been writing a food blog at the time because I've always loved baking and cooking. And when I was diagnosed with candida, suddenly the content of my food blog changed to be 100% candida recipes, which I thought I would lose my
Mm.
entire audience. But instead, the opposite happened because there were people out there who were dealing with the same situation and could not find a single recipe that tasted good at that time. So I really gained a huge audience that way, and that was how I published my first self-published book because people kept asking me for recipes. And then, as a result of that, as you know, Ellen DeGeneres recommended that on her website, and you would think I'd sell a zillion copies. I didn't. But what that allowed me to do was to acquire an agent who then got my first publishing contract with a publisher from
Right.
the States. And at that time, while I was writing that first book, I was contacted by a second publisher to write a Candida book. And really, normally you never do that. When you're writing, you would never overlap two books. But I really wanted to write the Candida book. That had been my first choice. So I said yes. I ended up writing these two books almost at the same time, almost killed me. And then I became a coach for people with Candida. And I studied holistic nutrition so that I would know what I was talking about. So I did that for I think it was close to 14 years.
Yes.
Started out part-time, ended up quitting my teaching job to do it full-time. But that's what brought me into the world of entrepreneurship and coaching. And then the
Mhm.
pandemic, as you know. So I had been
Mhm.
doing that just exclusively the nutrition stuff. And I was going through my old files and I came across this huge folder of my writing that I had intended to send out for publication. I had short stories, I had articles, all kinds of things. And I remember it was like literally, they say I felt like I was hitting the chest or whatever. I felt this like intake of breath where I suddenly stopped and I knew I just couldn't let that stuff sit there. I wanted to get back to my own writing. So as a result of that, I ended up moving into editing as well, helping other people with their writing. And that was 2020, early 2021. And I'll just say, like, my first client was a colleague. We were just having a chat, almost like this, but on
Yes.
Zoom, just catching up. And I said, I've switched, I've pivoted, I'm doing editing now. And she said, "Oh my God, I literally finished my manuscript like last night. I want you to edit my book." And that was
Oh,
my first major client. And her book was listed in the New York Times this year as one of the essential books on menopause. So it really was just a whirlwind. And just, I feel like things were meant to be because of
yeah.
how things fell into place. And I've been doing that since then. And, tweaking it as I go along. I do editing. I also do coaching now, where I work one-on-one with people to help them write their own books. Love it.
So, so fascinating, Ricki. And we've got several people now who have joined live as well that came on a little bit later. And so we're just
Yay.
welcoming you and hoping, yeah, that you're catching this. As Ricki, I feel like this is a book of you. And as you're speaking, that we're just flipping through these pages, these chapters in your beautiful life.
I love the metaphor.
Well, you are one for metaphors. That's another connection we have. And these whisperings or whatever it is that's sparking you to take action really intrigue me. Whether it's that conversation, with
Yeah. Well, I think for me, it was that push from, like I said, I mean, I saw all this material and I thought, I'm not getting any younger. If I
yeah,
don't do this now, when am I going to do it? And part of it is over the years, sort of reflecting on what like we were saying, sometimes you take action because you're kind of forced into it. I was always the kind of person when I was younger who, if I was forced to do something, I seemed to be able to manage it, but I wouldn't have chosen it. So,
right.
like when I had to find a place to live on my own because I was kicked out of the house or whatever. And I didn't think I could do it, but I did it.
Mhm.
And when my first husband wanted a divorce and I felt like my world was going to fall apart, totally foisted upon me, didn't want to do that, but I managed it. But I was never the kind of person who took action, took the initiative. And so when I reflected back, yes, I was able to do those things, but how many of the choices I'd made in my early life were because things just fell into place and I didn't have anything much to do with it. So just as an example, yes, I'd always wanted to be a writer. That was sort of an internal dream. But when I went to the University of Windsor here in Canada,
Yeah,
right, like literally next door to Detroit. And I had a mentor whom I adored, and he said, I think you should do a PhD. Well, at the time, it was just this vague idea, but I went ahead and did it because he suggested it.
yeah,
I really think back and think, would I have done that on my own? I'm glad I did it, but
yeah,
it was because of his suggestion. So many of the things that I did were because of other people or other
yeah,
circumstances, external circumstances. Whereas in more recent years, I've really made an effort to do things because I want to do them. Because if you think about
yeah.
it, if people think about what are the things in your life that you regret, I don't know about you, but
Mhm.
for me, it's never the things I did do, even if they didn't turn out. Like
Yes,
even the mistakes I made, I don't regret them. What I regret are the things I did not do that I
yeah,
wanted to do. Right. And so as I've gotten older, I've just tried to flip that and make sure I don't have those kind of regrets. If I want to do
Mhm.
something and it's important to me and it's possible, and what I'm learning is that it's always possible.
Yeah,
I will try to jump in and do it. So yeah, that was one of those moments where things clicked and I just thought, I will regret this if I don't do this. I'm
yes.
making this pivot. I'm going to get back to my writing, get back to working with words.
Mm, Ricki, I just so feel that with you and this message loud and clear that, it's never too
Yes,
late.
exactly. It's never too late and you're never too old.
Yeah.
I mean, I love hearing stories of people who started something in their 50s, 60s, 70s. Um, I just love those stories because they're such great examples of what is possible for people. Um, and yeah, you know, there's some, there are more and more, of course, as the population ages. But I mean, I
Mm.
remember years ago learning about this writer, Harriet Doerr, Doerr, I think is how she spells it. And she wrote a book called Stones for Ibarra. It's a novel.
Yeah.
I think she was 83 when she wrote that book, and it was her first novel that she'd ever published. And it won all kinds of awards and prizes and things. And she went on to
Mhm.
write more. But I just thought, oh my gosh, well, if she could do that, then what the heck am I waiting for? Like get going, lady.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And, it's this openness to, these signs that are out there that might, fuel that desire, that creativity that a lot of us as adults kind of, bury
Yeah.
deep, know, I've got my 6-year-old niece who's on this call, just joined us. They're heading back to Ontario and they're joining us from the airport.
Oh, wow.
But she was writing her little blog, her little stories about her experiences here.
Amazing. Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I know. I mean, it's when you think about it, for so many of us, we lose that spark as we get older, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of it is, again, it's external influence that we allow to influence us. Yeah. It's tough because of course you want to live in the world, and
Yeah.
psychologically we are wired to want to belong and be part of the group. But I think we need to somehow cling to that little kid, or the qualities of that little kid within us.
That's something I 100% agree with. This childlike wonder, awe, acceptance of self, you know, and the little stumbles we may have
Yeah.
is so important. Not to be seen as failures, you know, as we get older. And this is something I wrestled with a lot the last couple of years, because I've been highly always a kind of, that spark has been there for me, and answering the call and stepping into uncertainty because it felt right.
Yeah. Good for you. That's amazing.
You know, but thank you. But then reinventing and recreating is something. When you spoke again, I go back to October. I'm like, yes, it's always possible.
Yeah. It's and I think the challenge, for at least for me, is remembering that, right, and truly believing it.
Yeah.
um and like I said, not only clinging to the childlike qualities, but also I think for so many people we forget our own power, and we
Mm,
forget what we're capable of. And so I mean, we're both in a business mastermind, and one of the things that so many coaches often suggest is to keep a file or a folder of your accomplishments and your
yeah.
achievements. I had a previous coach who, she had what she called a victory file, and it's not
Yeah.
for ego purposes. It's to remind yourself when you don't feel capable, when you do feel like, oh, I'm never going to be able to accomplish this. That's when you go back to that, when you need that boost to remind yourself of your own capabilities and your own power and your own value, right? Because for a lot of us, I think this is something, and certainly I've seen it with women more than men, struggle with that, struggle with acknowledging their own value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So beautiful, Ricki. These little nuggets, this victory file, you know, for those beautiful soul brothers and sisters listening.
Mm.
Why not start your own victory file if you don't have one,
Yeah.
right?
And it's a way of looking at the world too, right? Looking for the positive. Um,
Yeah.
so for me, that was a real shift in my thinking over the
Yeah,
years, and a real learning curve for sure.
absolutely. Absolutely. The shift from, you know, from when you think about circumstances external, you know, and still do deal with this kind of victim mindset at times,
Hmm.
but from victim to victor.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, those are the people who succeed in life. Those are the people who are happier. And it's
Mhm.
it's a like I was saying, you referenced my talk. One of the things that for me was so encouraging was to learn that we are able to change the way we think over time. We can
Yeah.
change our thoughts, we can change our belief system by changing our neural pathways. And it's not a matter of, anything magical. It's just being consistent, daily, small, consistent actions lead to big change. And I definitely have seen that in my own experience over time.
Yes.
Things, it's interesting because I moved away from home when I was 18, I guess. And it's so interesting when you go back to visit people who are kind of the same,
Mm-hmm.
and you feel as if you have changed over the years. I'm
Mm-hmm.
the only one who
Mm-hmm.
left home out of my family. And I have conversations with my sisters who still think the same way that we were raised to think in our family, which now I listen and I think is so negative
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I've tried so hard to move away from that kind of pessimistic thinking, because I know that isn't the best way to have a productive, happy life, you know, and we can change the way we think. Absolutely.
Yes. That's such a key point here. And at any stage, any age, we can, the only thing we have control of is really our thoughts.
Yeah. And what we do
Right?
with them.
Exactly. And that sanctuary of our minds, what are we feeding that daily? Like you say, these daily small acts, these, I like to call them rituals around self-care, what we're feeding ourselves, not just nutritionally. And I mean, that's so important and vital in your life too, and what you're able to bring others, but those thoughts, questioning with curiosity as opposed to judgment. And that shift has been big for me too. Says who I can't. I'm 53 and starting over. Says who I can't. Who's telling me this?
Yeah.
Is this a fact? Do I like feeling like I can't? That I'm too old for this?
Exactly.
So these questions now I've through the last year I had worked with a thought coach program after I had done my life coaching when my job ended in 2022, and it was a job I loved, my soul work. But there are other springboards for our soul's mission, and I also needed to do the work, and I still do, and journey back to reconnect with my soul's purpose, who I am, and that strength, and start questioning from that place of curiosity. Says who I'm done.
Yeah, for sure.
And
who says there's only one thing that we can be called to do in our lives? Right?
Absolutely.
I mean, I think that most people could have multiple pathways in their life, and that's so much more interesting to me, right?
Yeah.
Learning these things. Steve Martin, the actor Steve Martin. I was reading about him. This is years ago, but apparently he had this plan where he decided he was going to focus in on one new, I guess you want to call it a career or skill, every 10 years. And I thought back to his career, and yes, I mean, he started out as a stand-up comedian. He did that. Then suddenly he just left it and he became an actor in comedies, and he mastered being an actor. And then he went on and became an artist at one point, or now I think he curates art. He became a writer. He's published a few novels, but he decided he was going to only focus for like 10 years, become an expert, do something he was interested in, and then move on to something else. And I just found that fascinating. And he actually did it, and he was good at so many of them.
Yes. And it's so interesting, when you look back at your life, I look back at mine, and others here, maybe our journeys, our breadcrumbs, and that evolution, that expansion, and how different life events have prepared us for where we are. All of you have joined us today. Something in the message that Ricki has sparked your interest to come, to join us for a Let's Talk Soul to Soul. You didn't have to. And perhaps there's that desire to do some writing, get into getting your ideas, these notebooks or these journals that you've been scribbling in, doing something with that.
Yeah. Because that's it. People, and especially these days, people are interested in individual stories. Like, we want to know that someone is a real person and what they went through. And like I said, everybody, I have never met a person who doesn't have something valuable to share with the world. You may not think so. You think, oh, what's special about me? But there always is something unique and special about each person. And if you can draw out the story that's going to resonate with your audience, then you have something important to say. It's a matter of knowing what it is and how to say it, right? But never think that, each person's unique. And that's really, even if you have a story that you think is similar to someone else's, the way you tell it and who you are is going to resonate with certain people versus that other person's story, right? You know, I mean, when I was talking to someone recently and she's saying, oh, it's, you know, I just want to write a cookbook, but there's so many cookbooks out there. And I said, you know, when I published my cookbook, I was a baking book, the first one. There were thousands of other baking books out there. Why did mine sell? Because people were interested in what I had to say and my recipes. It was really as simple as that. It was, those were followers on my blog. And so they were interested in what I had to share. Other cookbooks sell really well because the audience is interested in what that person has to share. But there's an audience for everybody. So yeah, don't let that stop you if you think, oh, I have nothing special to say. That just isn't true.
I love it, Ricki. And you know, you started, you just experimented. It sounds like you know, you were doing your own, you self-published your first book. So what, you know, what advice, what wisdom do you have to share with others who are saying, okay, well, now what? Yeah, I'm ready to take some kind of step, but I'm in this kind of limbo. I'm in this kind of abyss. Like, now what? I'm bursting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it depends. If you feel you know what you want to say, then just start writing it. Some people who don't consider themselves writers, they're not sure where to start. They don't know how to begin writing. In that case, I would say definitely speak to someone who's an expert who can help you and to help you clarify what is it that you would be writing about and who would you be writing it for. I mean, when I published my cookbook, I had already been publishing recipes on my blog for several years. I had been a baker since I was a little kid. So for me, that felt totally natural. When people started saying, oh, I wish you would do a cookbook, I didn't even think about it. I sort of knew what I was going to do. But I did have to find out the logistics of how to put a book together because I had never done that. So I spoke to people in the field. I spoke to different experts and I determined who I wanted to work with. And then I worked with that person. So I think you really need to be active, you know, take the initiative to find the information you need if you feel you don't have it. I'm just going to do a quick plug here because this is exactly what we're talking about. So I'm doing a workshop. It is next month, tomorrow, starting tomorrow. So it's on March 21st called Before the Book. And it's exactly for this purpose, for people who think, I don't know, I'm not sure if I'm a writer, I'm not sure I have enough ideas, I'm not sure if they're the right ideas, I don't even know where to begin. Like, that's really where you are. That's what this workshop is for, to tell you everything you need to know before you're ready to start writing. And so my goal is that by the time we finish this workshop, the attendees will understand exactly what's involved in the whole process, what they would need to know and be able to do in order to sit down and start writing their books. So that's March 21st, and we don't have a sign-up page quite yet, but if you send me a DM here on Instagram and just tell me it's for Before the Book, I'll be sure to get your name on the wait list so that when registration opens, you can sign up. Because it's
Awesome.
knowledge, right? It's I think for a lot of people, what holds them back is lack of knowledge. They feel that there's a lack of knowledge or information around the topic. And there's always a way to find things out. Speak to people, research. You can always find out what you need to know.
Yes, and you know, Ricki, I'm super excited about this for myself too. Personally, I'm thinking a couple quick follow-ups to that. I've got my 6-year-old niece on, as you know. When can you start to think about writing a book? Like, is it too young to think about writing a book when you're 6 years old, or do you know what I mean?
And I believe there have been 6-year-old authors of books already. If you know, if you know how to put ideas together, because often if you're someone at age 6 may or may not know how to write, but you can talk. And this is what I do with ghostwriting clients, right? Where they don't do the writing. I do the writing and we talk it through and they record their ideas and then I turn that into the content on the page. So, you know, if you're young or if you just have ideas but not sure how to write them down, you share them with someone who can write them down for you. So, I mean, like I told you, I wrote my first novel at 9. I think if you have the ideas and they're good ideas, start whenever you feel ready.
Wonderful. And Ricki, your session Before the Book, March 21st, I will continue to also share on my Instagram. Absolutely.
I think
I'm
you're
one
on
of
the
your biggest
list,
fans.
right? I think you're on
Yes,
the list for
I
that.
am. Yes, I am.
Good.
Because it's interesting as you speak of, you know, the journeys, the journey. I'm looking at the chapters of my life, and there's been a lot of change. And as I speak, my husband is in Calgary again, and he's finishing his 4th-year apprenticeship for carpentry after starting with an MBA biochem, big steel
Wow.
company. I look out at Tunnel Mountain. We ended up here because we were sitting on the mountain saying we needed to move west. I'd never been west of Ontario till 2005 when he fell out of the sky. And he decided he needed to pick up a trade at that time. So he went to culinary school. That's,
Amazing.
yeah, and now we have another chapter with carpentry and entrepreneurship.
So interesting, right?
So
Like,
interesting.
yeah.
Mhm.
We just never know where life's going to lead us. And it's always a
Mhm.
fascinating journey, right?
Yeah. The road less taken, you know, can lead us to some really interesting places. And the people that we meet along the way.
Yeah. The last few years, I mean, think about how many new people you've met. I don't know about you, but I certainly have. And it's just been crazy, right? And some of the lowest times of your life, you
Yeah.
meet some of the best people that you've met.
Mhm.
And some of these changes, who knows where this will lead and what's going to happen in the future, right? And you plan
Definitely.
what you can, but what's it? What's the expression? People plan and God laughs, or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. You know, and you know, I think of my mom and her serenity prayer, you know, that to this day, with even later stage dementia, she can still rehearse that.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, oh.
Yes, yes, yes. So, you know, Ricki, I want to just be very mindful of your time. I could talk for days with you. And
I would love to, but yeah, I have another meeting at 11.
yes,
So,
yes, absolutely. So, Ricki, as we're kind of winding up, are there any, oh my goodness, any final thoughts that you want to share? Your secret formula, I know you've got so many recipes and prescriptions for, you know, writing a bestseller book or getting even started. Anything you want to leave our dear friends with, young and old, all
yeah,
ages?
yeah, I think for me, the most important point is that if you have the idea of writing a book in your heart, if it's something that you've been thinking about, and it's not just a passing thought that disappears, but it's something that you keeps coming back and you
Yeah.
feel that there's a book in you, don't let that feeling die. Don't just think,
Mm,
oh, I'm not capable, I'm not a writer, and then let it die. Because if you have that sense, if that feeling keeps returning to you, it means you really should be writing that book.
yeah.
And I think too many people allow the dream to die because they're
Mm,
scared or they don't feel qualified. You can always get beyond that. I can't even
yeah.
tell you how many things I've done petrified that
Yes.
afterwards I thought, oh, wow, I can't believe I was able to do that when I really didn't think I could to begin with. So, but I hate hearing stories of people who say, oh, I wanted to write a book, but it never happened. And I know people, I think of people who were older when I was younger, my parents' friends or whatever, so
Mhm.
many regrets in life that they had dreams that they never chased, and I just don't want that to happen for people. So
Yes.
that would be my advice. Don't let that happen.
Don't let that happen. And we have amazing humans, coaches like book coaches like Ricki, who maybe you need that, you know, that hand held to you to help you take that first step or what may seem like a leap so you get out of that comfort zone,
Yeah,
that place of familiarity that actually is not that comfortable, I'll be honest.
right,
You know, not that
exactly.
comfortable. You're feeling this nudge, this urge, this push pull. Well, Ricki's hand is reaching out to anyone who is really feeling that and wants a little bit of companionship along the way, but also that expertise that comes along with your lived experiences. Ricki, so many, as well as the skills that you've acquired, which you've combined into this beautiful package, this treasure trove. And so
And it
I think,
really is easier when you have someone
yeah,
there with you who knows, right? So yeah, you can always get the help.
exactly. So Ricki, I'm going to share the ways to connect with our soul family, those who are here now and those who are watching at a later time. I'll also share this with you, Ricki, so you're able to add it to your, your many, many other ways that you've gotten out there, and your message that there's always a way, and that you help people discover their message and share it.
Yes.
So
And I
thank
would love to
you,
hear
Ricki.
from you guys if you just want to say hi on Instagram.
Yes,
Yeah, anytime.
yes. Your posts are amazing, Ricki. There, and everyone, if you haven't noticed, there's a real lightness and humor to Ricki that, she's a lot of fun too.
Oh, thank you, my dear.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining today, Ricki, and for your inspiration, the light you've shone in my life
Thank you.
and
And
others.
thanks for having me. I love chatting with you.
Thank you. And to all who have joined us, maybe you feel that little spark of creativity, of inspiration. Do something with it. No regret.
Sounds good.
Have a beautiful day.
You too, my friend.
Thank you. And ciao. Ciao, ciao.